It's a big world out there. Welcome to Bigfoot's Wilderness Podcast.
I awoke with a start, screaming and jumping out of my sleeping bag, launching myself to the other side of my tent. My heart was racing. I felt a wave of panic coming over me. Something just grabbed my leg, and I scrambled to find my pistol buried somewhere under my pack and sleeping bag. I'm an avid hiker and camper. I like to get out and spend as much time in the open air as possible. I prefer to go alone. I enjoy the peace and quiet whenever I can find some. I have a very stressful job, investment banking. I'm 30 years old and make a lot of money, but it comes with a price, anxiety, long hours, and most likely, a short career. I try to find a balance by taking these getaways, usually just a weekend a month by myself or as often as I can, but that's usually about it. I only have the weekends. I have a few friends, some from work and some from college, but I choose not to include them on my trips to the woods. Speaking of friends, my ex-girlfriend's father, Bill, owns some property in Capon-Bridge, West Virginia. We've been friends for years, even after the breakup, and he mentioned the property. He'd purchased 3 lots, all adjoining, lots of privacy. Also, a plus was no home construction anywhere on this acreage. The woods surrounded a small lake that was shared by all the property owners. Bill had only owned it a few years, but considered selling it. The real estate market out there was a little soft. Not much profit to be made. A bell went off in my head. I mentioned to him I was interested. Maybe I could just check it out and spend a weekend camping out there. We didn't talk numbers and nothing was definitive, but he was happy to have me use it. I'd never been to Capon-Bridge before, but it was only about an hour and a half from Northern Virginia where I lived and worked. Pretty convenient for a weekend getaway. Once I marked my calendar for early June, I did a map search and checked out some pictures online. The town looked nice and small, just perfect. I made it up and located the lot. I found a good spot on his property, nestled between the lake and the woods, and I set up camp and built a fire ring. There was no shortage of rocks. Once I was done, I went off to hike around. I noticed on the back of his land as I walked around there were boulders, all different sizes, which only got bigger in size and became part of a mountainside, and it was eerily quiet. There weren't any people up here. No houses or tents. I had the place to myself. So I decided to check out the boulders. The larger ones looked like giant blocks that jutted out of the bottom of the hillside. I climbed up for a closer look, hopping from one rock to the next. Looking down below into the boulder field, I could partially see what looked like a footpath between the rocks. I sat on a flat ledge with an overhang and admired the scenery. I began chucking rocks down below. They would bounce off some of the bigger boulders. My last rock was a little heavy, and I lobbed it over the edge. A crash onto the boulders below seemed to stir something up, and I heard a groan. Then I heard shuffling of feet, and something scrambled away. I caught a glimpse of black weaving between the boulders below off to my left. From what I've heard from Bill, black bears are common in this area, and he advised me to carry my .45. He mentioned that he encountered one just inside the wood line where I'm camping. Apparently, it paced back and forth just out of sight and would growl at him. Bill said it was big, and he had fired several shots into the air to drive it away, and one night while he was camping with his family, seemed to catch him off guard. I made my way back to my camp and got ready for dinner. I was cooking a beef stew. It was a pleasant day, right by the water, but it became quite cool in the evening. I had left my jacket in the car and went to retrieve it. When I got back, Something had ransacked my camp. My pot of stew was missing, and my cooler had been opened. I couldn't find anything missing in the cooler, however, but wondered how something could open it. It had a latch, and it wasn't ripped apart, unless it was just a vagrant. I walked around my camp, looking for the pot. It was then that I heard that shuffle of feet just inside the wood line about 20 yards away. It was June. The foliage was thick. I couldn't see anything, and it was getting dark. I shouted into the tree line, "Hey, if you took my food, show your face. What the hell is wrong with you? What's your problem?" I got a response, a low growl. Oh, so this is the bear Bill was talking about. I quickly walked back to my tent and grabbed my pistol. I then walked towards the tree line and fired into the air twice. I listened. Silence. I fired again. Nothing. I strained to listen for any noise. I decided to sit back down in front of my camp, but changed my seat so I could face the woods. I wasn't scared, but more a little uneasy. I kept my .45 next to me. All was quiet. I'd wanted to finish a book that I was reading, so I pulled out my e-reader, and after about an hour, I began to get tired. I walked down away from the camp towards the lake to relieve myself, and on my way back, I could hear an owl hooting. I was happy to hear some wildlife that wasn't growling at me. I put out the fire and got ready for bed. It took me a while to get to sleep. I suppose I was trying to figure out what had just happened to my dinner. Was I dealing with somebody watching me? What could walk off with my food? I remember checking the ground to see if any of the stew had spilled. Not a drop. I was puzzled. Out of a deep sleep, I was awakened by something grabbing my leg. I screamed, jumping to the other side of my tent and squirming out of my sleeping bag at the same time. I sat up, staring into the darkness towards the tent flap to see what was there. I quickly scrambled around in the pitch dark to the tent floor, searching for my gun under my sleeping bag and blankets until finally recovering the pistol. My hands were trembling with fear. Something just grabbed my leg. I had to get out of the tent and confront whoever it was. But I hesitated. I listened intently. I thought I heard breathing, deep breathing. My heart was pounding. I tried to calm myself and slowly peered out of the tent. No moon tonight. Great. I quickly dressed and stood tall, pointing my gun out into the darkness. Still nothing. I noticed my fire still had a few embers burning. There's no way I'm going back to sleep. So I restarted the fire the best I could to get some warmth and some light. I sat back in my chair and threw a blanket around me, and again I faced the woods. There was that owl again. Now I could see something. Eye shine, just inside the woodline. Its eyes seemed large and gave off a bright red color, which seemed odd. And it had some lungs on it, quite loud from 50 feet away. Something wasn't right. The owl started to sound different. It sounded more like a person trying to sound like an owl. That's it. My fight or flight kicked in, and I shouted, "Come out of those woods or I swear I'll put a bullet in you if I have to." I was talking tough, trying to get a response. Well, I got a response. A large object crashed to the ground near me and hit my tent. I jumped as I heard the crash, trying to avoid whatever it was, and then I heard a roar. That's not a bear, I thought. Tree branches were popping and snapping. It stepped out of the woodline, and all I could really see was a giant shadow at first. It took a few more steps towards me, and the light from the campfire partially illuminated the size and shape of this thing. It had to be more than 7 feet tall. It had long, gangly arms that rested by its side. Its shape, though, was kind of blocky and wide. Its head was large and seemed to just sit on its shoulders. I I couldn't see much more than that, nor did I actually want to. My legs were wobbling as I staggered back away from the creature. Once I was parallel with the tent, I put it between us. It didn't appear to be moving closer, but just seemed to stare at me with those glowing red eyes. It was breathing heavy, almost wheezing. I felt like I was going to pass out as well. My blood was rushing to my hands and feet. I had to make a quick decision. I decided I needed to run. It was all I could come up with. My truck was several hundred feet away in the gravel parking lot, but I felt like I could get there in seconds. I don't remember breathing, just running as fast as my legs would take me. I looked back and saw nothing. I felt like I was in a daze. I'd left everything and drove 20 minutes into Winchester and spent the night in a motel. I slept the rest of the night and woke up around noon the next day. Still exhausted, I felt like it was a fitful night of sleep. I couldn't remember my dreams, but I tossed and turned a lot. That afternoon, I had to make a decision. I could replace everything I lost, but I'm not sure Bill would be too happy with me leaving my gear all over his property. So I got some lunch. I finally got up the nerve to drive back. I drove my SUV all the way up to the tent. To hell with the parking lot. I wasn't going to take any chances. As I came up on the campsite, it looked like a bomb went off. All of my supplies and gear were scattered everywhere. I cleaned up the best I could. My sleeping bag and extra blankets were ripped to shreds. My tent was flattened, and so was my cooler. I hesitated to follow a line of trash that led into the woods. I backed away. I felt creeped out. Turning around, I noticed my pot laying next to my tent. It took me a while to realize that that's what it was that he threw at me. I decided to go back to the motel and get myself cleaned up. I used their dumpster to toss out the now useless gear. Like I said, all replaceable. Driving back home on Sunday, I contacted Bill and had a conversation with him. I asked him to tell me his story about the bear again. When he was done, I told him my story. His jaw practically hit the floor from the way he reacted. We've known each other for 15 years. He knows I'm a straight shooter. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry you went through that. So you think the bear and that Bigfoot you claim are one and the same? Scared as I was, even though I had a gun in my hand, Bill, it never occurred to me to shoot it. Oh, you'd be dead. I'm sure of it, he told me, if you're telling me how big this thing was. The more we talked about my encounter, the more I started connecting the dots on the events of the day and encounter. I also confided in him that I had climbed the rock cliffs at the back of his property and threw rocks down to the boulder field, which may have actually disturbed the creature because I saw a dark figure move away, making grunting noises. Of course, I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that such a thing exists. And then there was the owl. Spooky that it could imitate another animal. That shows signs of intelligence. I never had any intention of killing it. I just wanted it to leave, and apparently it wanted me to leave too. Perhaps we had a battle of wills, and he won. I passed on buying the property, obviously. I continue to camp and hike, but have a newfound respect for what may live in the woods, wherever I travel. An awesome Blue Ridge Bigfoot original story from a few years ago, one of my favorites. Let's go ahead and switch gears and talk about Daniel and Josh. Daniel, a writer, Josh, an artist, came together and created something pretty special. Roz and the Big Man, soon to be released in comic book stores. It's a comic book. It's a really awesome comic book, and we're going to talk to them about their story. They're also doing a Kickstarter, and they would love your support. But we'll go ahead and let them speak for themselves. So here they are, Josh and Daniel and Josh, talking about Roz and the Big Man, coming soon to comic book stores and probably even more. But we'll just start with that for now.
I want to just say, Daniel and Josh, thank you very much for coming on the Bigfoot's Wilderness podcast. I think it's appropriate that you come on to Bigfoot's Wilderness because Roz and the big man are part of the wilderness.
They are. And thank you for having us. I think we're both honored to be asked questions and be on your podcast. So thank you.
I can't tell you, I saw the advertisement on Instagram. Didn't know a thing about you guys. I watched it. I said, wow, how cool is that? Everybody's always trying to make a hokey Bigfoot movie with a mask or some really crude CGI. Why don't more people, expand out and do a comic book or an animated movie? We just don't see enough of that. I don't understand. Maybe it takes too much effort and it's easier to just slip into a costume. But I really like what you guys put together. I love the animated trailer. I thought it was great. It was probably, everybody has their own interpretation of what a Bigfoot looks like and so on. And I just thought yours was pretty good. It kind of reminded me something between a Bigfoot and a Groot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I could definitely see that. But we certainly agree with you where it's like Bigfoot is something that's sort of so relegated to the fringes that it's even kind of done dirty in fiction. Like people aren't really even exploring the power of the story a whole lot. Like I think, maybe you'll see a cartoon every 10 years or so. I know there was a claymation a thing about a Sasquatch a little while back by Leica. But generally speaking, it's kind of a bankrupt field of entertainment, which really feels like a huge missed opportunity and something we really wanted to tap into ourselves. Because these types of stories, these like legends and myths and this kind of like American mythology is something that we are both huge fans of. And we wanted to definitely put our own spin on it because, like you said, everyone sort of knows like the crappy mask or the crummy CGI model of a Bigfoot. But when we went to design him, we really wanted to play with that idea a little bit more and come up with something a little different. And now I'm the writer of this, but Josh here is the artist, so I'll let him talk a little bit about the designing process of it.
I think like you both have said, we've all seen the rubbery mask version, the Henry and the Henderson, very simian style Sasquatch. And I think, I don't know, just kind of like to break free from that. Big boulder teeth and big yellow eyes. I don't know, something about it kind of to spotlight more expression. I think our Bigfoot is a little different than what you normally would come across. But it'll be fun to explore along with the story. Once the story emerges as you read it, maybe you'll understand the direction that we went with him.
Yeah, I think we wanted to lean a little bit more into, for lack of a better term, sort of the fantasy elements or the sort of a more magical take on it, a less of a cryptid monster in the forest that scares hikers. None of the kind of Patterson Gimlin footage look. We wanted to take that legend and sort of imagine what could give birth to that legend. What kind of creature would it be? And how would that shape the world? And in a world where these things existed, how would that all play out? And then ultimately, how would humans interact with it when they finally did discover it?
And I'm 50. I just turned 55. I have always been a big kid at heart. I grew up in the 70s and I was a big comic book collector. Loved comic books. I like the idea of watching a movie, sure. I love the idea of reading a comic book more because there was something that I took home with me, right? You go to a movie, you watch a movie, you remember what you remember, and that's about it. At least with a comic book, it plays out in your head. You got your imagination, but you've got something physical. And I really like the idea that I can go to my neighborhood comic book store and I can buy this comic book, right?
Oh yeah, we'll be figuring out distribution shortly after this Kickstarter's done. But we got to get the book in hand first, which we're very, very excited to do.
I can't wait because that to me people, I've got a stuffed Bigfoot on my boom arm here. I've got another one, over to the right of me and another one to the left of me, and I got some stickers and I've got a plaster cast and I've got a coaster and a bunch of stuff. But the idea of people buy these things, these little tchotchkes, because they like the character. They like Bigfoot. They like something about it. But the fact that you can buy a comic book, put it in a plastic sleeve, slip it in a drawer, pull it out and read it anytime you want, or buy other things that are in your Kickstarter package, I think, and and be a contributor, is just such a nice. It's a nice way to give someone a memory. And
Hmm.
just watching the little trailer that I watched, I really enjoyed it, and I just thought that and again, I don't want you to tell too much of the story, but just the story, enough of the story that people can seem to understand or get their or head wrapped around what exactly is going on here. I mean, the name Roz, if you can't figure that out, Roswell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the
You're
big
very
man, that's
clever.
very clever. And big man, hairy man, wild man,
Yeah,
Bigfoot,
exactly.
Sasquatch. I mean, it's there's hundreds of names for Bigfoot, and you picked a good one. And they
Yeah.
match well together.
Definitely. Yeah, we wanted to go more into kind of the classic, just almost like a more of a tribal name, if you will. Just wild man in the forest was really something we were a fan of, and definitely. So yeah, just to get into the story. So for us, this issue number one is called The Runaway, and that definitely is sort of at its thematic center, as you have a lot of people sort of running away from their past, or running away literally in some cases and figuratively in others. Um, and it starts with this human character, because there was a saying that you can't have Wonderland without Alice. Is you need someone to guide you into the mythological world a little bit, or into the aliens. Like you need a little bit of grounding. So our story begins with kind of a conspiracy theorist, newspaper man tracking down this old, sort of Secret Service guy and dragging him kind of back into the action. And as they talk, like through their conversation, which you hear in the trailer, you start to kind of question like what actually was happening in Roswell. So this is set in 1952. So this is 5 years after the Roswell crash. And through that, really what we're exploring is kind of the birth of a conspiracy, but that at the same time it's played against this Bigfoot story, which it will all come together kind of towards the end of the book without spoiling anything. But it's just the birth of a legend played against the birth of a conspiracy, and what these different types of storytelling mean to us, and how we interact with them, and that gives us a lot of room for play. And through that, with like the big man character, we start him, sort of centuries ago, if you will. It just the first line of the book is long ago, far to the north. And we decided to place him a little bit more into Canada, just because we were a fan of the term Sasquatch, and we followed that back to the term Saskets, which is a Salish term, which is indigenous First Nations of the Pacific Northwest coast. So we were really excited to kind of place it there and to honor some of that, and to show its transition into more of like the Northern California kind of American Bigfoot. And the big man himself is not quite either of those things, but it's sort of seeing how these terms branch off from this actual creature that we have. And then, yeah, like I'd mentioned, ultimately these things will come into fierce contact with one another. And then there's a whole massive world of aliens and cryptids and mythology and holidays, and just sort of it gets to be kind of a big bonkers playground for us to really have a lot of fun in. But this first chapter, The Runaway, is really just, if you think of it as like the pilot of a series. So this would be episode 1. We're hoping to push it for kind of as long as we can go, but we definitely have the next 3 episodes all lined up and ready to go.
And the larger story at whole kind of map worked out,
Yeah.
We know where it's heading, and we hope to be able to tell it to
the finish. Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, like you'd mentioned, being a comic book collector back, way back when, one of our goals was to create an ongoing series, something that people could tune into. We're indie creators, so it might not be every month, but maybe every 2 or 3 months that we could have a new 48-page issue out for people to pick up and hopefully come along with us on this crazy journey with Roz and the Big Man.
So 48 pages. I mean, you'd be a graphic novel, right?
Yeah, a short one. Yeah,
A short one, right?
or a double size kind of single issue. It's definitely bigger than the average, paperback you'd pick up.
I still collect them to a degree. When you have kids and you have a career and you have lawns to cut and stuff like that, you don't get to spend as much time looking at all the characters and trying to keep up with Marvel or DC or whatever. But things like this this has always been something I've loved, and that's why I started Bigfoot's Wilderness podcast. It was just always a good idea to you know talk about your passion. I reached out to people and said, "Tell me your stories," and they told me their stories, and I read their stories, and I just continued this podcast, and with a few audio issues here and there. Other than that, it's been a lot of fun. But when I look at this story, and you have it classified as like an adventure mystery series.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I mean, I just bought a 3-inch thick graphic novel of The Walking Dead that has like 100 episodes in
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah,
That could be you guys. You just
that's
the
certainly the
Bigfoot
goal.
mystery continues.
Yeah. And even sort of, we have an end in sight for ourselves, but even within that, we have ideas where we would go after. So I think ultimately, really what we created was a sandbox to play in. And you have so many of these characters that mean a lot to people, especially, Bigfoot, aliens. Roswell itself is this crazy icon of a story. But you have other people coming out in the woodwork that talk to us just through Instagram. And I never thought in my life that Mothman was as popular as he was. But we hear about him all the time, or the Chupacabra, or other things.
Or even after you reached out to us, I was, looking through your podcast, listening, and you have other things such as like the Whistler, and that's something I just learned of like within the past couple of years, and that the fact that Roz and the Big Man could bring in all these other type of urban myths and
Mhm.
whatever, it's so exciting because like you said, it's comic books. There's a plethora of material to enjoy, and I don't know. We're trying to string it all together in a way that will mean something to us and hopefully to you and readers as well.
Oh yeah. Well, you're first of all, the first thing that catches my eye is the art. So I grew up in the land of Jack Kirby and Jim Steranko and Neil Adams, and I think only Neil Adams is still alive. But
Yeah.
a lot of these great artists, and your artwork is very catching to the eye. I mean, I saw it, and immediately I gravitated towards it. I liked uh, the way you drew the creature, the witness, the guy who kind of jumps back into the world of flying saucers, and
Mm.
and the way you draw the alien. I mean, I think all of it's very. I think it's what you expect to see. I think the Bigfoot is or Sasquatch is a little different, but I think it still is more or less what people. It's almost like you're projecting some features. Like people always talk about seeing the teeth. People talk about seeing the glowing eyes. You're really pointing those things out. I love the way it's drawn. It's drawn very well, and there's I don't know why I keep going back to Groot, but it's the broadness of the shoulders and the length of the limbs, and the hair and the mysterious things that are coming off the limbs, and how it almost blends. Bigfoot's always something that tends to blend into the woodwork or blend into the scenery, and I think you've done a great job of that.
Well, thank you so much, and that's to be complimented and also hear Jack Kirby in the same, you know. Speaking of that, that means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's a weird, delicate balance of like trying to, respect the source material of what we think these creatures look like. Roz looks like pretty much a little green man, and Big Man a little more accentuated features, and I understand the Groot reference. And for that, just the Big Man, the wild man, being part of the forest itself, blending in. I understand the comparison, and I
Yeah.
thank you for that.
But we definitely went with more of an elongated character than I think sometimes you see sort of, stumpier or really thick, gorilla-sized Bigfoots, or you get down into the smaller ones like the orang pendek stuff. If I'm butchering that, whatever. But and I think part of that, to what Josh was saying, was just to like kind of get him into the environment. Like he's almost more of a forest spirit at this point, or just the way like the aesthetic of him plays a little bit with that, and he's sort of a little more elegant than you might imagine certain other of these types of creatures.
Right. Well, I always get in trouble on Instagram because I'll post someone's art, and for the life of me, I'll do a Google search or try to find the person because I want to give them the credit they deserve. If I picked it out, I liked it, and I want other people to like it, and I'd like to share um, their creativity. I'd like to mention, hey, this was drawn by such and such, and I can't find it, and people give me hell for not uh, tagging the person who created the art. And I always like to give credit to people who, in my opinion, draw what I kind of perceive. Bigfoot tends to look in my head a certain way, but yeah, I always got to give credit to the artist. I mean, if it wasn't for the artist, if it wasn't for the multitude of comic books with great art, I mean, you really couldn't tell that story as well, I don't think. I mean, I
Hmm.
think I think art goes a long way when it comes to comic books, when it comes to creating a story. You got to have it. You've got to pick a theme and go with it.
Definitely. And I think even just to relate back to what we were talking about kind of at the beginning, where people are used to the sort of the hokey Bigfoot look with the rubber mask or, the bad fursuit. And I do think, not having to deal with a costume or not having to deal with CGI, having the art be able to marry everything into one kind of consistent look really helps sell the entire uh, experience and gets to integrate it into reality, even though it's a heightened reality done through Joshua's wonderful art. It is a little more accepting or acceptable to the human brain, I think, to see these kind of cartoons acting this out more so than it is to see sort of a live action Harry and the Hendersons or Jack Link's Sasquatch beef jerky commercial or whatever.
But
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No, you're fine. Please go ahead.
Um, there's something to that being in a comic book, being in like as Dan said, a heightened set style. Um, yeah, like it just like lets you believe a little more deeply, I think. Whenever I read comic books, it just integrates into that way. And um, yeah, sorry, just expanding on that.
I was just going to say, we only have a taste of the story, only have a taste of the art, so we can't can't wait to hear how the story plays out, and of course how the art goes with it. But
Hmm.
I am right there as soon as it's in the comic book stores. I'm sure you'll let us all know when it is because that will be well, if anything, it'll probably be hard to get a hold of. So I'll probably have to race to the store. Luckily, I've got a couple around me, and I can when the time comes, hopefully I'll get a wink, wink. I'll get a heads up.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course. We will be pestering. Don't worry.
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's fine by me. So tell me
Um,
a little bit about the Kickstarter because I'm real interested in how it's going. You just started it. I mean, it's literally just been a couple of days.
Yeah,
we're a
it's
little over a week now.
yeah, it's been a little overwhelming. I think we were expecting a slower, smaller build with the money coming in, but we've spent quite a long time creating all the assets for it, animating that video. It's basically just Josh and myself for all these things. I mean, we tap into a great network of really talented friends who are wonderful. I mean, we're in Los Angeles, so fortunately, a lot of these people are adjacent or within the industry, if you will. So, when we need a voice actor, we have our friend Gary, who does a fantastic job. When we need some editing, we go to my brother Ferguson, who does a fantastic job. And so we've been really fortunate that our network has allowed us to build some of these really wonderful assets for the Kickstarter campaign. There's the theatrical trailer, which is actually sort of for the narrative, the comic itself. We released these action figures, these really limited edition kind of retro knockoff action figures done by Retro Gimmick. We found them on Instagram. I think they're out of North or South Carolina. I'm blanking on that, but we got to do a really fun toy commercial for that, which is a little bit different in tone than the main story, but is still part of our whole just kind of retro aesthetic and kind of having fun with all these great characters.
Yeah, and sorry not to cut you off. I think because of the time we took into spend on these videos, um, that's what's blown up the most. And now we're just trying to get the actual product to people as quickly as possible now
Mhm.
yes, we have this video, we have this toy commercial, and
Yeah,
but the comic is the most important.
Yeah.
Please look at the comic.
and the comic book is about 90% finished at this point. We're just wrapping up some color, and we already have the letters kind of working. But the money we were raising was primarily for printing the book, so we could do our first run. We're looking to print about 2,000 books, so it's gonna be a small run. But after we get done with the Kickstarter and fulfill our backers, we have a Comic-Con, Los Angeles Comic-Con lined up to promote stuff. We'll probably get it onto Comixology so that at least the digital one can be found easily by everybody. And then it's time to start lining up, mom and pop's shops. My comic book store that I had when I was growing up in this town called Los Banos, California, it burned down just like a year or two ago because of a catastrophic fire, and they just got back on their feet and just opened. So I'm very excited to just go there and like donate them a stack of books and kind of close the circle on that one and give back to that. But yeah, for us, we really just want to get it as many places as we can. I think we're feeling pretty confident with it. We spent it's funny that you've mentioned Groot, because whenever we started this book, the trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't even out, which is hard to believe. Like, this was like 6 or 7 years ago. And, I don't think anyone would have guessed that this many years later, a talking raccoon and a talking tree would be,
as big as they are,
multi-million-dollar intellectual properties.
Oh, yeah. Well, how can people kind of give us a little insight into how people can contribute to your Kickstarter? I understand you have packages, right? So could you go into that a little bit and just explain what, if they'd like to contribute, like what they would get for contributing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to keep it pretty much as accessible as possible. So at the $5 range, we have the digital comic. And then from there, we have the print comic, then a kind of a print and digital bundle. But where it starts to get a little bit more fun is in the full bundle, which has the physical edition of the book, which is 48 pages plus about 20 pages of kind of behind the scenes special features. So it'll end up being about a 60, 70 page book. And that will also come with the digital copy plus these two prints that we're doing, 8.5 by 11 art prints, one of which we remade the I Want to Believe poster from the X-Files, because for us, X-Files, Twilight Zone, that's all kind of where we're at in terms of how we think of the book and kind of some of the tone, and that's stuff that we really enjoyed coming up with. So we have the two posters. One is an alt cover. One is the Twilight Zone image that we remade with models. You can see the string in it.
Or rather, it's the X-Files I Want to Believe poster, which says at the bottom, believe this, and you have Big Man poking out from a tree and a flying saucer.
And that will also include the logo sticker and a postcard that Josh drew of us as the creators with the creations kind of harassing them.
A la Stanley, Jack Kirby back.
Yeah, back to that. Definitely Stan's soapbox sort of stuff where we're drawing ourselves into the style of the comic. And then from there, I believe there's a $55 reward tier that includes an original sketch by Josh. So we'll kind of hit people up who pick that tier and ask them what they'd like to have sketched, if it's a cryptoid or cryptid or something specific, or if they just want the characters themselves. Josh will be doing sketches for that. And then we have the toys that we had mentioned, which is at the $150 level, where that comes with the custom limited edition retro toys plus the whole bundle. And the bundle itself is going, I believe we still have some early bird availability where they're $25 plus shipping, and the full bundle is usually $35. Yeah, $35. And then I think we still have some of the original art up. We might have one page left.
Yeah, that's the babies that whoever buys those, they must understand that how much I care for them, and letting go of those.
Yeah, so $200.
But excited to do so at the same time.
Selling some of the original art. Some pretty good pages in there, though Josh is definitely saving one or two of the other ones, which are a little too near and dear to be let go. And then we sold off one of the covers, the alt cover, which
painted in gouache, so it kind of gives a good chalky, painted feel of what I'm going for with like 1950s, 60s pulp novel kind of cover.
Yeah.
And we still have some stretch goals that will be coming out, if we reach certain
Oh,
ways.
yes.
So that's something to look forward
Oh
to.
yeah, we'll be announcing. I guess technically it'll be announced here first because we haven't finished the graphics yet for the Kickstarter page. But we're doing a hat with the Roz and the Big Man logo, and then the $10,000 stretch goal we are keeping secret for now. But the hat will be coming out and be available. I believe we'll be selling those for $35. And there'll be an add-on that people can attach to any of the backers or any of the other things they're backing, or they can just back for the hat.
So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone into this.
Yes.
And you've started at the $5 level all the way to 150, a little higher to 200 to get some coveted artwork. And for those in the audience that don't really understand Kickstart, you can go to rozandthebigman.com, and there's a Kickstarter link there. You would go to the Kickstarter page, and you could see all of this information, or you could just go to Instagram and look up Roz and the Big Man, and there's a link on their profile there. But the comic book and all of this information, all of the stuff that they're using to promote their movie, starting from $5 to $150, you wouldn't receive that until the launch of the comic book, correct?
Correct. Right now, we are on schedule to be shipping out all the rewards early November. So there might be a little bit of, play when exactly that will happen. There can always be problems with shipping or with printing. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's like things can change quickly. But we're, as much of it that is in our control that we can handle, we're looking to have an early November ship date. And the printer we're working with is a fairly common one for comic books, and they have got a great reputation. And we're producing it in the States, so we don't have to wait for a boat to get it to us from China or anything, or worry about international shipping or countries closing down again with Delta variant or any of that. So yeah, we're just so excited to get the book ourselves. It's going to be really great to get it to other people, but I think, not to be selfish, but I can't wait to open a box and pull one of these things out and smell it and read it.
Smell is a big one. Actually.
Yeah,
surprisingly
for comics. Yeah, it's there.
Well, a great promotion to go with Roz and the Big Man. Made in the USA. That's the best part right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for us, it's all American sort of mythology that we're playing with. So yeah, the toys are made here. The printer, as far as we know, everything is printed here. And part of that is just not dealing with the shipping expenses of cargo, but also just to kind of respect it. And we're going for old school pulpy American made feel, and we're hopefully achieving it.
I will say the one part that's not American made is our colorist, Daniel Rosa Duran. He's from Spain, and just to shout out to him, just because his work is fantastic.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Anybody who hears his name should look him up. So
yeah, he really, because Josh does. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the comic book making process, but typically there are about 5 people involved. You have a penciler who draws it, an inker who inks it, then your colorist comes in, and then you have the letterer who puts it on top, and then that goes out from there. So yeah, we've been doubling up on jobs. I've been writing and lettering, and Josh has been penciling and inking. So it's taken us quite a long time to get here. And yeah, Daniel Rosa Duran has been our third collaborator on the book itself, and his color work is really extraordinary.
That's great. I love all the talent just coming together.
It feels like the forming of a band, which I've never been part of a band, but this is as close as I'll get.
Yeah.
Well, you break down your characters in your in your Kickstarter press kit, and just little background stories. Not a whole lot. And you even have the little black bars that take out some of the information, kind of like the government does. And you've got your art in progress, and it's just fun to look at. And again, it gets you're anticipating the launch, and yeah, we can wait a couple more months, but we want it now.
Yeah.
So do we.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. And you said it says Roz and the Big Man is primarily set in 1953 America, not 1952.
Oh, that might be a typo. It actually is 1952.
Oh no! I found a typo.
Oh, that's great.
Take it down.
Yeah. This interview is over. Flip the
It's
table,
over.
walk out.
It's done.
It's all into a conspiracy itself.
Yeah. So for us, with the time period, we really wanted to get into kind of early Cold War, really conspiratorial, very on edge, just ripe for commentary and exploration. And it's a difficult and sort of painful time in America at that point as you're transitioning out of World War II and into the sort of white picket fence life. And while that's happening, the overarching fears of communism and conspiracy. And at this point, you have, UFOs are hugely in the public consciousness at that point, even though the term UFO, I think, is coined in 1953. So we're flying saucers in the book. Which is a term that popped off with the Kenneth Arnold sighting around Mount Rainier of that year, just like a month before the Roswell crash.
Was that the incident where he said he saw several flying at like 1,200 miles an hour?
Yep. Because he'd been a pilot for something like 10 or 20 years on those routes. And if you know anyone who's become a pilot, like the amount of work you have to put into it is very difficult. And you can calculate speed like that. And he claimed to have seen 7 or 9 sort of shiny objects that he said were moving across the sky as like a saucer across water. And we actually start this book with Kenneth Arnold and kind of the build up into Roswell.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research into actual accounts and stuff, which I'm sure you appreciate. So, we're trying to have like a foundation in reality, or at least we want to believe the reports, so
we definitely start in a lot of facts that I think people will recognize, but then we do need some narrative room to play with stuff on our own, because I think if you talk to anyone who's really kind of into these types of stories and these conspiracies, everyone has kind of their own version of it, so we hope people will accept that we really lean into the foundation as a factual thing, and then evolve it out in the ways that we see our story progressing.
Now, not to get too off track, but how did you two meet and become the writer and artist of this story? Are you guys lifelong friends? Did you just collaborate and just come up with this idea? You were looking for each other, or how did it work?
Well, it might be fate. We don't know.
Well, we were both just very poor and living in Brooklyn, and we happened to just be, Josh was on the first floor, I was on the third or fourth floor, and we just kind of met like passing on the stoop, and then everyone started hanging out. And I had seen that Josh could draw it was a very talented artist. So obviously I was trying to like snatch that up for my own nefarious writing ends.
And I was honestly looking for a reason to draw. So doing it for yourself is great.
But it started as
collaboration
as a Batman fanfic. We're like, okay, we'll do like 5 or 10 pages of a Batman story, and that will be it. We'll see what happens. And in the bottom of that email, I sort of jokingly had an extended PS about this idea, Rosin the Big Man, that I'd been kicking around in my head a little bit longer than that. And then Josh went off with the character design. We still have the first sketches of these characters.
Yeah, which, I mean, I would love to draw Batman one day, but, instead of just doing a fanfic thing, which is great, doing something original sounded funner, or more fun. Yeah. And with a Bigfoot and alien sounded crazy enough, and the first iteration of the comic is completely different than what we have now.
Yeah, we did 21 pages that we created, and we submitted to some publishers, and we completely abandoned. We threw away all the other scripts we had. We completely restarted something like 3 years ago. So we really definitely believe in kind of the larger story and the characters themselves. But that first issue was a little more slapstick, a little more, I don't know. It was trying to be funny.
If you've seen Danger 5, that was a huge inspiration. And if you haven't seen Danger 5, you should watch Danger 5.
Yeah. But we would jokingly refer to it as the Roz and the Big Man Christmas Spectacular. And it was nuts. One day we will publish that, but we don't know when.
But just to get back to just us, the real important people, the creators. Yeah, so we both met in Brooklyn, and then we, went separate ways and kept in constant contact. And surprisingly, if you want to make a comic book, it takes a lot of effort, and that's something we learned. It took us years to learn. And so finally, we wound up both back in California, where we're both roughly from. And now we're roommates in Los Angeles, and that has made the process so much easier to just yell at each other from, rooms across a hall.
Yeah. So in the last year, it's probably we've done twice as much work as we had done in the previous 5 years, if you will. But a lot of it has been structural, and a lot of it, I keep using the term, but just building the sandbox that is the world that we can play with.
Yeah, you're a dynamo together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The one last, I think I'm reaching here, but if you recall, and you're too young probably, but when Patterson Gimlin filmed Patty
Mhm.
in 1967, and it was broadcast for years on TV shows like In Search Of, right?
Mhm.
They said that, or I'm sorry, most people just assumed that there was one Bigfoot, and it lived somewhere in Northern
Mhm.
California, and that's the Bigfoot on the video. And when you when you put into your story that this is the last Sasquatch, and that people thought that there was only one Bigfoot, I think you kind of can make a connection there that people just didn't, or I think people to this day still don't think, oh my God, there's a Bigfoot in North Carolina, there's a Bigfoot in Virginia,
Yeah.
or there are more than one Bigfoot. And the fact that you kind of said this is the last Sasquatch, and this was 1952.
Mhm.
I just thought that was an interesting. I'm sure we'll learn more about why it's the last Sasquatch, and I can't wait to read it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for picking up on that. That's
Yeah, because for us, we wanted it, I think people get into fights about sort of what it takes to hide a breeding population of an animal as large as a Bigfoot. And people like to reference things like pandas or silverback gorillas. So for us, we did want it to feel like a possible living organism, and something that could have either a culture or a structure, that there is sort of a legacy to what the Sasquatch were, and that this is the final one, and that they are very alone in the world, and they're very aloof. I think really a lot of the story is sort of about these disparate, kind of lonely, troubled people trying to find some kind of solace with one another, which to us makes a lot of sense, even from the human side or from the cryptid side. It's just a lot of things kind of learning not to be afraid of each other in a world that's more beautiful than they might be willing to accept.
I could see some great artwork that you'll post on that I'm sure you'll post on Instagram at some point when you've released the comic, and you can do maybe a milk box, or a missing on a milk box, or I don't know what, but
Yeah.
the one comment that I put in here is funny is Roz is an ace Martian fighter pilot driven to insanity during 5 years of cruel experimentation in a top secret government installation.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, the Roz is gonna be a lot of fun. He's a really fun one to write, and he's, of the two characters, he's certainly the talkative one. So for us, there's definitely a big guy, little guy kind of dynamic, whether it's Han and Chewie, or I guess more contemporarily, Rocket and Groot is something that we're never going to be able to avoid entirely as a comparison, even though they are very different characters. But yeah, no, Roz is. I can't say too much about him, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that line up, because that's a great one.
I love that. I love that profile. It's just great, and your other characters is just a few, but obviously you don't want to overcrowd it, but
Mhm.
it's just gonna flow so well. I think I just keep I've watched your cartoon a few times just to kind of enjoy the animation, and it's just, again, I keep saying to myself, why isn't anybody trying to do animation? Not like a oh gosh, not like a Pixar. I'm talking about animation, like real, talented drawing, flow, and I guess just what, 2 weeks ago we got What If, and
Yeah,
I thought that
right.
was so refreshing.
It really was. Yeah, that animation style was. Yeah, whenever people actually put time into developing a really cool look, and then you animate it fantastically, like when that is done at the highest levels, it's just so enthralling.
And it's like a really slippery slope. I could only say that like our appetites are wet now for more animation, I'm not an animator, but I've been able to work on a few projects doing small things. And, having to learn different aspects of animation because it takes a whole team to make something like What If or a Disney cartoon or whatever it is. And now I think we both just want to do it all, which is kind of a concerning thing. But,
but like the comic itself, like now the creators were sort of into the mixed media side of it a little more. Like the comic book is certainly our flagship, but I think
the animations are here to stay. There will be more coming along. They take a little time to do, but if you're excited about that, so are we.
Yeah. So we're really hoping we can build that out, and if we can get to some, sort of level of consistent success, we'd love to, all those talented friends we have, we'd love to start paying them and kind of evolve this into more of like a larger production. I think what Roz and the Big Man could be in 3 years from now could be so radically different, and hopefully, I mean, we're super excited for that, but it's hard, you don't want to lose the present for the future. So we're very committed to the current stuff, but it's hard not to daydream when you start seeing like the beginnings of how cool some of this stuff can look.
Well, what I was going to say is when you guys hit the big time, don't forget the little people like me, okay?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're all helping each other get there, right? So
yeah, sure. I just think it's great that you've pursued this and that you stuck with it for 6 to 7 years and just had the vision in your mind. You both had it, and you followed your dream, and you're still doing it, and we're just months away from seeing it. And people out there, I don't care how old you are, if you enjoy comic books, pick this one up because this is going to be a collector's item. There's going to be a 1, a 2, a 3, however many, and it's going to be right in the price range of every other comic book. So pick it up, put it in a plastic bag, keep it in a drawer, and you can look at it anytime you want. You can take screenshots, whatever you want to do, but you can always reflect on it. Disney Plus is great. I can watch it in my house, but I can't. I don't get anything tangible from it. I think most people are like me in that they like, if they enjoy something, they like to have memorabilia. They like to have a physical product, and I think that people are going to love seeing Bigfoot in a comic book store. I don't see it at all. I go to Comic Cons. I wear a Bigfoot shirt. People don't even notice it. Well, of course they're dressed like the Predator or something, but
yeah.
But you don't see Bigfoot, and this could be a Comic Con. Like you said, you're going to the San Diego Comic Con. You could help spark something. That'd be great.
Yeah, because I mean there are two characters in the Marvelverse. There's a Bigfoot and there's a Wendigo, but they both kind of just look like the same sort of thing. It's just giant beast person. I don't think either of them really has a whole lot of personality. Or if they do, it's more of like a werewolf system where they like morph into this giant thing.
I think Alpha Flight Sasquatch has
Alpha Flight,
more of a personality.
Well, I'm less familiar, but yeah, even the big companies haven't gotten them to work or haven't put enough maybe love behind them. I'm not familiar enough with Alpha Flight to speak to it directly. So if there's an Alpha Flight fan like listening to this and be like, oh, this idiot doesn't know anything, I feel bad for them. But yeah, it just feels like such a huge missed opportunity, this type of story. And I think the years where we were working on it, we kept being afraid that like one day we would turn on the TV and see a Bigfoot and an alien. Because to us, it felt like, of course, this like needs to exist. This needs to be out there. And yeah, we definitely lived in a little bit of fear for a long time there, just thinking like, oh God. Because there was a phase recently where quite a lot of Roswell shows were coming up.
Project Blue Book.
And a few others. And there's a lot of interest. Yeah, there's a lot of interest around unidentified aerial phenomena now that the literal government has put out footage of them and been like, yeah, we don't know what this is. So it seems like a pretty great time in the public consciousness to try to bring this to the front. And I think for the people that have been there all along waiting for this kind of thing, they'll be like, oh, finally, here's something cool that I haven't seen in a while.
I agree with you that UFOs are very popular right now, especially with the government admitting to the UAP and the UFO. But I think, and I'm going to probably insult somebody, which I don't mean to, but I think that you'll find the Bigfoot community always comes about halfway. They typically most 99% of the people in the Bigfoot community start off with good intentions and end up not doing anything. Like they'll start a podcast, do 20 episodes and drop out, or they'll
Hmm.
start a project, start it on Facebook, have some success, go in over their head and then just disappear. And I think the UFO obviously is, or the alien aspect is much more popular. I guess, I've heard the name MUFON a million times, and I'm sure if you've ever done any type of background research into UFOs and into aliens, you know what MUFON is. I don't think people know what the BFRO is. I do think they know what Finding Bigfoot is, but they thought that was a
Yeah.
comedy because the name Finding
Right.
Bigfoot was not a realistic name because they never found Bigfoot. They never even tried to find Bigfoot. So it was, but the guys on the show are, they were fun to watch and it kept your interest. But even that kind of came up short and it just disappeared, and people don't know what the future of Finding Bigfoot is, and they come out
Mhm.
with newer shows, and they're fewer episodes and not as interesting, and it's nice to see you're going to have the market cornered on Bigfoot in a comic book, and it'll just grow from there.
Yeah, we hope so. Because yeah, I've definitely felt the pain of like looking for fun Bigfoot stuff or trying to find anything interesting. And you really have to wade through a lot of stuff to get to some of the better quality things. I think some of what this started with was I forget the name of the exact documentary, but there had been one that I had watched, you know, 10 years ago that really got me into Bigfoot itself because it was trying to take it seriously and it was trying to approach it very scientifically. And
I'm
I
sure.
thought that was so
Yeah,
fascinating.
I'm sure it was Sasquatch legend meets science, right?
I would have to do a little bit of Googling to confirm, but probably.
Yes, a guy I mentioned on every show accidentally or on purpose is Doug Hychek, and Doug did Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, and he's getting ready to come out with Sasquatch Legend Meets Science 2, and
Oh.
probably around the same time you're going to launch your book. So who knows? We'll get a little Bigfoot infusion.
Yeah, and it's also something we're really excited for is, we know comic people, but to kind of get into the world of Bigfoot people and like conspiracy people, like that's really exciting for us, is to meet all the different kind of, fan groups that could exist for this. And hopefully, we don't piss any of them off to the point that they chase us out of conventions with torches or anything like that's not what Bigfoot does. But hopefully we're able to give them something meaningful and enjoyable and something that takes it seriously.
I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it, and I think we're really going to enjoy it. I am hoping that sorry, I will hope that you can send me a couple of links that I can put on the show notes for this, and that
Absolutely.
I can direct people as to where to go to look up your Kickstarter and to see the different packages that are available. I hope that people just jump in and support it because you know no one's really ever put Bigfoot in a comic book, whether it's with an alien. It's such a unique idea. Again, this is a piece of history, a collector's item, something that people don't ordinarily get in the form of a comic book. And I know that a lot of people my age listen to this, and I know they're comic book fans as well. And this, uh, not that you want to sell it, but if you're a collector, you want to hold on to your beer cans, you want to hold on to your comic books, put them in a file, hold on to them. This is the kind of stuff that is exciting and is something you can pass down to your kids, or you can just hold on to till you die. But I think it's going to be fantastic, and I appreciate your time very much.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate being on.
Yeah, it truly is an honor. Thank you.
Absolutely. And hold on just one second.
Thanks once again to Daniel and Josh for coming on. Really appreciated it. Be on the lookout for Roz and the Big Man. Should be dropping sometime in November, I believe. And if you can't get to a comic book store, I'm sure there are many more options. But don't forget to check out the Kickstarter program. I'll leave the link in my show notes. And by the way, if you're looking for some more Bigfoot, look for Bigfoot Frightening Encounters on Audible. Books 1, 2, and 3 are narrated by me. And if you're looking for any type of Bigfoot's Wilderness apparel, you can go to Teespring. I'll leave the link in my show notes for Bigfoot's Wilderness Teespring. And lastly, if you've had an encounter with Bigfoot and would like to share, you can email me at bigfootswilderness@gmail.com. Thanks very much. Have a great night.